The Launchpad's note mode includes the chromatic mode, the scale mode, various customizations and settings, overlap, and the drum mode. All of this and more are coming up right now on this episode of Pro Music Creator. This video is the fourth in a series of videos covering all of the features of the Launchpad Pro Mark III. Before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome and thanks for joining us. I'm Ken Ramirez and this is Pro Music Creator, where we all work together to become pros at producing and making music. Hopefully by the end of this video series, we'll all be pros at the art of using the Novation Launchpad Pro Mark III to create, produce, and perform music. So, if you wish to learn everything there is to know about the Novation Launchpad Pro, stay tuned by subscribing to this channel and turning on the notifications so you'll be alerted each time I post a new video in this series. Launchpad Pro's note mode makes it easy to play drums and melodic instruments with feeling and expression thanks to the 8x8 grid that is sensitive to both velocity and pressure. You can switch the layout to chromatic, scale, or drum and customize the playing surface to fit your needs. Use the up and down arrows to increase or decrease the octave and the left and right buttons to move the grid up or down by a semitone. Note mode will automatically adjust to the instrument actively armed in Ableton Live. If a drum rack is armed, it will switch to a drum layout and vice versa. To get started, pick an instrument from the Ableton Live browser and double-click it or drag it to a track. Make sure the track is record armed and monitoring is set to auto to make sure you can hear the sound. The chromatic mode is the starting point when you enter note mode, and it's basically one big 8x8 grid of buttons that you can press to create various notes. The blue pads indicate the notes within the current scale, which is C minor by default, while the purple pads tell you where the root of the scale is located. If the pads are blank, those notes are not in the scale. This layout is similar to the fretboard of a guitar. The octave is 2 pads up and 2 pads across. Also, the 6th column of pads plays the same notes as the first column of the row above. So this makes it simpler to play chords like on a guitar. If you want to change the layout of the chromatic mode, you can do so in the note mode settings. Just press Shift and Note to access them. We'll cover note mode settings shortly. When you use scale mode on Launchpad Pro, you won't be able to hit any wrong notes since the device will only display the notes in the scale that you have chosen. Blue pads represent notes in the key and the purple ones represent the root. If there is a blank pad, that indicates the note is not in the range of what you can play. This same concept applies to chromatic mode, and you can customize the layout in note mode by pressing and holding the note button. Before we discuss the note mode settings, if you're getting some value so far from this video, I hope you would consider clicking on the like button, share this content with others, and subscribing to the channel and turning on the notifications so you'll be alerted each time I post a new video in this series. To access note mode settings, hold Shift and press either the note or chord button. Both the buttons will light up green when in the settings. With these settings, you can toggle between chromatic mode and scale mode, adjust the scale, and root note. Customize the note mode's design with the overlap controls, and modify the note mode's MIDI channel. Take note that the same scale, root node, and MIDI channel is applicable to both note and chord mode. When you press the chromatic scale toggle, it will switch between chromatic mode, illuminated dimly in red, and scale mode, lit up brightly in green. The overlap feature allows you to adjust the layout of both chromatic and scale mode. We'll discuss the overlap functionality shortly. The scale viewer will display which notes are included in the currently chosen scale on a piano-style keyboard. The blue pads indicate notes in the scale, and the purple pads stand for root, and the white pads that are dimly lit suggest notes that are not part of the scale. To modify the root note of the scale, press a pad in the scale viewer. The scale select option offers you 16 different scales. Hit a pad to pick a scale. The chosen scale will be lit up brightly in white, while unselected scales will be dimly lit in blue. The available scales are natural minor, natural major, Dorian, Phrygian, Mixolydian, melodic minor, harmonic minor, bebop Dorian, blues, minor pentatonic, Hungarian minor, Ukrainian Dorian, Marva, Toddy, whole tone, and Hirajoshi. You can select which MIDI channel note mode sends on, ranging from 1 to 16. This can be helpful when you're recording multiple tracks and you want to send notes to a particular one. The overlap setting defines the relationship between samples on different rows. With an overlap of 5, the leftmost pad on one row will be the same note as the 6th pad from the left on the row below. The value of the overlap determines the number of fingers needed to play a scale, omitting the sequential setup. For instance, when using a 4-finger overlap, it is possible to play a scale going up the grid with only 4 fingers. The sequential layout behaves differently from the 2, 3, 4, and 5-finger overlays. In chromatic mode, the notes are placed out in a linear fashion and are exclusive to each pad. In scale mode, just the octaves of the root are overlaid. The sequential pattern in scale mode is similar to the layout on the Novation circuit range, offering an uncomplicated way to play scales across multiple octaves. To load a drum kit into a MIDI track in Ableton Live, select a drum kit from the browser and double-click it, or drag it to the desired track. Make sure that the track is record armed and monitoring is set to auto to be able to hear the sounds. Looking at note mode, the drum rack will be represented by four 4x4 sections, which show the filled slots. The drum rack in Ableton Live can be navigated through 16 slot increments with the up and down arrow keys, or 4 slot increments with the left and right arrow keys. The lower left 4x4 region will always match with the slots that are visible in the drum rack. If there is a sample loaded in any of sections 2, 3, or 4 of the Launchpad, it will be represented by a brightly lit yellow pad similar to what is seen in Area 1. When a drum pad is pressed, it will turn blue to show that it has been selected and can then be edited from within the drum rack. When any other instrument is on the active track, the grid will toggle to either scale mode or chromatic mode. To load an instrument into a MIDI track in Ableton, select an item from the browser and double-click it, or drag it to a track. If nothing is heard, make sure that the track is record armed and that the monitoring is set to auto. In the next video, we'll be discussing chord mode. So if you don't want to miss the remaining videos in this series, make sure you click that like button, share this content with all of your friends, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on the notifications so you won't miss any future videos. Thanks, and see you next time.